Okay, it says we're live. I am getting started today. Bryant will be hopping on in a little bit, so we'll give him some time. And I just want to, okay, here we go. So I'm really excited for today's conversation. But while we're waiting for Bryant to hop on today's call, I just wanted to let everybody know that we are hosting a Pay It Forward campaign, which we decided to do this twice a year because we had such great success last time that we did this for the Sandy Hogan Scholarship Legacy. So what we do is for our coaching fundamentals class, it's a 1-day coach training intensive. You earn 6 ICF credits if you're interested in that, and it's 100% scholarship. So if you're a leader that is seeking to become more coach-like, or you have a team that you would, or team leads that you would like to send through coach training, this is an outstanding opportunity. And I'm going to be posting the link below so that you can check it out, and you can even sign up through the application on this page, and you can send it to your team, like I said, and invite any colleagues that you wish. And that will be on August 2nd. So we really hope that you can join us. The last one was just a blast. We have a variety of really excellent coaches that you would be learning directly from, which is really exciting. And by the end of the fundamentals class, I've noticed some programs, they don't put very much in their fundamentals. We set a really solid foundation so that you effectively know how to coach. So you're going to walk away with the framework. You're going to walk away knowing what coaching is, but also what coaching is not. There is a lot of misconceptions. And what we find is that when people branch out and sometimes start to coach without any education or training, sometimes they're actually not coaching at all. They're consulting or mentoring or motivating in other ways. So coaching is a really highly unique approach where it's all about the person's self-discovery. So they have ownership over their answers and solutions. And it's because of that, it's highly effective. And the stats back that up. It's really neat to see. We're now living in a day and age where we have statistics on coaching. When I first started, there were very few, and now it's really neat to see all of the evidence that's coming out that's really demonstrating what a results-based process it is. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. We basically are hosting these equips every Tuesday, and these are weekly coaching tips that equip coaches, future coaches, and coach-like leaders to develop excellence in their coaching approach. And I am your host, Laurel Elders with the Institute for Integrative Intelligence. We are an ICF-accredited coach training and education provider, where it's our passion to elevate human potential through both the art and the science of masterful coaching. Today's topic is an expansion on what we covered in our Monday Coaching Mindset newsletter, and language beyond words. And I'm pausing because I wanted to get you the link. If you're not on our newsletter, I'm just going to put that in the chat. You can sign up for the newsletter if you would like to receive links to the equips or the resources or articles that we share every Monday. Again, that's the Monday Coaching Mindset. So today's topic is the language beyond words. And how does this impact our presence and leadership and effectiveness in the world, in the workplace, all of it. So we're going to do a deeper dive. But first, I just wanted to start off by talking about some research that Bryant and I were really looking at last equips. And this research I want to bring forward because to me, it is such an important important, almost like a missing link that explains so much about human intuition, um, and how we can lean into our intuition, even as a leader. So I want to go over this research before we dive into the actual topic because it really sets the stage for what we're going to be exploring. And this is that there's a documentary that you want to check out called The Power of the Heart. This is covered in that documentary. And basically, the HeartMath Institute did some research about how the heart and how information flows from the heart to the brain. And in that study, participants were hooked up to brain, skin, and heart monitors. Each person was shown 30 random high or low arousal images. So high arousal would be like a fire, low arousal would be like a bunny rabbit in a field on a nice day. And basically the image popped up for 3 seconds and then it was blank for 10 seconds. And the results of reactions were really unexpected. The heart reacted to the images before the brain and the skin. But what shocked the scientists even more was not really logically explainable by physical surface science. The heart clearly reacted before the person visually saw the image. But get this, it gets deeper. We're going to continue to go down the rabbit hole. What was even more unexplainable is that the heart reacted 5 seconds prior to the high arousal pictures being randomly chosen by the computer. Randomly chosen. So surface science tells us this is impossible, very improbable. However, when we study quantum physics has discovered that space and time do not apply to energy in the same ways that physical matter do. So just like a radio antenna can pick up on waves, the heart was connected to something that could pick up on what was going on. So fascinating, so fascinating. The other thing I want to offer about intuition, because I used to downplay the role that intuition played in a professional setting as a leader, but also as a coach when I first started out, believe it or not. My coach, Sandy Hogan, who we have really focused the scholarship legacies on, she was the first one that called me out on this. And she was also my mentor. And she said, why aren't you using your intuition when you coach? You're leaving out an entire part of you. I was like, well, it's kind of woo-woo, wishy-washy. I'm very much a truth seeker. I'm very skeptical. So I am one that's like, prove it. And before it's proven, I won't buy into it. So that's where I was coming from. And what I discovered as I was invited to research leadership is John C. Maxwell wrote the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And law number 8 is the law of intuition. So he says, quote, leaders look at things differently than others do. They possess leadership intuition that informs everything they do. So fascinating. So I really started to explore what is the role of intuition in our, in coaching, in leadership, in parenthood, and everything I was doing. I was discounting this part of myself, but yet if you look at the research of HeartMath, and that research was not out at the time, I was discounting solutions and answers that could have come to me, right? So even Einstein, some of his discoveries were from using intuition and imagination. So yes, there's validity in the rational world, but there's also validity in the non-rational, the things that we can't quite explain, and how can those empower us or guide us? And it's not that we ever need to leave our intuitions at the door, our rational mind at the door, but the integration of both. And that's really what the heart of integrative intelligence also ends. That's another aspect of it. All right, so before we go any deeper, I just want to welcome Bryant to the stage. Welcome, Bryant.
Thank you for the welcome. And, workshops, you got them. People start getting curious at the end, and, the questions will come in. But I'm glad to be here. Apologies on being late, but I know, Laurel, you have been holding it down. How are you?
Good, good. I was just geeking out on our topic today.
Got you. Got you.
Of course.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm excited about it too. Powerful newsletter. If you didn't read it yesterday, powerful newsletter. Heart math. I learned something. So I know you probably already went over that. So where are we taking it? Where are we at?
All right. So actually, I just covered the research that we were talking about last week with the HeartMath Institute and how they discovered that the heart was connected to a form of intuition that they, wasn't really explainable or wasn't, they weren't aware of before, which, I find so fascinating, and it makes a lot of sense. But one thing that I brought up in this past, in the past article on the language beyond words is the heart's language. And that's not something that we are really taught unless we seek out this kind of information about ourselves.
Yep.
I know that, I don't know, have you read the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho?
I read it a couple times. I read it at different stages of my life as you take something different away from it every time.
Yeah, I feel like he did a really good job touching on this concept. And I recognize that there's, and I'm just going to say something that might sound a little crazy. There's two other emotions that I believe we are leaving out of our emotional language. And that is yes, and that is no. And the heart knows these emotions well because it's connected to something bigger. So perhaps this is our conscience, right? Where I'm invited to do something, and logically I'm like, oh, I should say yes. But yet there's a part of me in my heart that's like, I don't know if this is aligned.
Yep.
Right. And are we listening at that level to the heart's language?
Yeah. And I never, in reading that article, I think you threw maybe in there too. Like it was yes, no, maybe, and maybe it was kind of unsure. And I never thought of yes, no as an emotion. I think the way that you put it was that when we say yes, no, we come from a place of thinking that we're being judgmental. And I just never put two and two together that yes and no can just be a emotion. It could be a sense of joy or a sense of like, I'm excited about this thing. That could be yes. That could be a form of yes. No could just be like, I don't feel good, or my heart's starting to beat fast. I don't know if I really like this direction that it's going in, but it's also unsure, or that can be indifferent. So I just never thought about the heart I didn't think about yes and no as an emotion. I thought it was just more of a, I guess, position or stance that you have on something, or boundaries. Like I guess that's how it comes out in the external world, is how do we set boundaries? So it was an interesting read.
Yeah, and it is that too, right? It can be both. It's like the ego's version of yes and no is not so much emotion based or intuition based. It's more based on judgment, maybe external factors.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. So I guess because I watched the video, and I've actually been like learning a lot more about intuition. And in that experiment, it was talking so much so about like how the heart knew like the image that was going to be, like it was like the heart knew what was going to be presented before the brain or the gut could figure out what was going on. So I guess like how could that be tied to, how do we know that's intuition versus like something else?
Yeah. That's one of my favorite questions to explore is, what is the difference between intuition and fear? So I am deathly afraid of flying, and I was offered the opportunity to go on an international trip, and I swore my intuition was telling me, don't go, it's not safe. And it turned out it was
Mm-hmm.
all fear. And I
Mm-hmm.
got to thinking, well, how do I know the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How does anyone know the difference? What is the fear? What is the intuition? Or what is something just a fantasy land versus an intuition?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, and I'm not saying my experience is going to be the same formula as yours, but for me, there's this inner calm knowing
Mm-hmm.
versus an emotional reactive knowing. That's how I've learned as after I asked that question, I started observing when it was intuition and when something did come into fruition.
Gotcha.
There's this calm inner knowing, even if it was later met with an emotional response.
Hmm. Okay.
Curious what your thoughts and experiences are, though.
Okay. Um, yes. So, I'm not sure what this was, but when I was going through that period of a quarter life crisis,
Mhm.
I had never planned to move to the East Coast. I thought it was just too expensive. But, I wanted to get out of Chicago, which is where I'm from. And it led me to Boston. And I was just like, I don't know if I'm just taking a leap or is it intuition? I just wanted something new. Um, but turns out Boston was only about maybe lasted for 6 to 8 months or something like that. And I moved out of Boston, but I ended up moving to New York. I never wanted to move to New York. I thought it was too fast. It was too much. The rent's too high, and I'm working a nonprofit at the time, so like it's just the math wasn't mathing for me. And but when I actually was able to kind of like as much stress that I was dealing with at the time, a little bit of depression also, not a lot of bit of depression. What happened was just that. Um, I didn't want as much as I didn't want to be here. I saw opportunity, but I felt that something was telling me like stay, like you're not done here. And I don't know what that is. I never understood what that was, honestly, but it was something like internally where it's just like in my head I'm like I don't want to be here.
Mhm.
But internally something was just saying like the East Coast isn't done with you yet. And I was just like, I don't know what that is. It turns out everything worked out amazingly. Like as far as like I was able to create community. I was able to find work that I actually cared about. I was able to find a job that I really enjoyed. But I just never understood what that was. Like something just kept telling me like the East Coast isn't done with you yet. Literally like those words would pop up in my head from time to time. And I still can't explain it to this day. I
Mhm.
just knew that even though this is a terrible situation right now, that I should follow through with this. So I don't know if that was my heart speaking to me because I never wanted to live in New York. But
Yeah.
when I got here, it was just something like telling me that I know times are hard now. And these weren't the words, but the words were the East Coast isn't done with you. And I don't know where those words came from,
Yeah.
honestly. But I
Interesting.
stayed and everything worked out. Yeah.
Fascinating. So
Yeah.
looking back, what did that teach you?
Uh I think it just taught me to I think I think it taught me a little bit about instinct versus intuition.
Mm.
Instinct is more of like survival. And I knew how to survive. So I think I have good instincts. But intuition is just something that you can't always like see. You just kind of feel it. Like it's just like it's like the not knowing but knowing, right? Like you can just say like, like I think I want to stay here. This isn't like my environment isn't reflecting like a comfortable place that I want to be, but something else is telling me that I need to stay. So I would say in that time what I learned is just kind of like the differences between instincts and intuition. Because
Mhm.
instincts are just kind of like I think nature versus nurture, versus intuition is something that you can't always like see or you can't always feel. And I think it's also a muscle that you have to build as well.
Mhm.
But I think that intuition is just not something that is always can be readily seen. It's just something that internal to where it's just like, okay, I'm uncomfortable, but I'm comfortable at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally relate to that. Well, it's so true. And it's like I think why it can, trip people up or why it's harder to trust is because it's not always logical.
Yep.
We rely so much on logic and rational thought, which is, very helpful and valid
Hmm.
and all of that. But we could be discounting a part of ourselves that's connected to something much greater, including
Hmm.
our own greatness.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, it's, I don't know. Yes, yes, and I'm still. I guess that's what was happening at the time. Like, I guess my heart was telling my brain was telling me no, like you don't need to be here. This isn't the
Mhm.
environment for you. But I guess my heart was like, yes, just go with it. See what happens. It's
There's
something here. It's something
yeah.
here. Yeah.
So fascinating. Well, it reminds me too, the Course in Miracles says that words are 3 times removed from reality.
Hmm.
And I think about how we're so externally focused and maybe so surface focused
Hmm.
that that sometimes we don't even, maybe we could start considering more, what is the essence beneath what I'm thinking? What is the essence that I'm feeling?
Hmm.
Um,
Could you? I don't know if you explained this already. I saw it in the newsletter too. You said words are 3 times removed from reality.
yes.
That is a power. I don't know what it means, but it sounds really powerful. Could you explain that a bit, please?
Yes. So basically, what happens with the human experience is there's the phenomenon, the thing that happens, the thing
Hmm.
that is. And then in our experience of the phenomenon, we evaluate it.
Hmm.
We say, oh, is that phenomenon? Is it good, bad, right, or wrong?
Mm.
And this is the ego's way or the brain's way of categorizing, am I safe and am I unsafe?
Hmm.
And then we take that evaluation and we interpret. We interpret the phenomenon. And we can continue to go just like a fractal. We can get caught in an illusion, or we can really, begin to piece things apart and look at the essence and the truth of what something is when we get closer to it versus further away from it. But I just think it's an interesting notion, because if we're so connected to judging and evaluating
Hmm.
versus being with, we get closer to reality. Judging and evaluating can sometimes take us away from reality, as distinguished from maybe discernment. Ah, this is this and that is that, discernment versus
Gotcha.
this is good, bad, right, or wrong.
Okay, understood. So it's more so you. It sounds like it goes back to kind of like the evolutionary effects of just like you said, survival, like fight, flight,
Mhm.
freeze. Like you're ready to just judge a situation just to
Mhm.
determine your safety in it. And words are kind of like that avenue in which we do that. And it sounds like most of the time we either are quick to judge situations or we might not be using the correct words in order to say of something, in order to actually be present with the situation.
Mhm.
And I guess what I'm saying there is that it sounds like when it comes to judging situations, we are quick to just go into survival mode and just label it as this is good, this is bad, this is positive, this is negative, versus just actually being present with what's going on in the situation and then having a chance to, I guess, practice mindfulness and just feeling what's coming up internally, right? Is that
Mhm.
what you're saying?
Yes, yes. And
Okay.
I also have come to believe, after being in coaching and being self reflective, that the heart, I believe, is not disconnected from reality, but our
Hmm.
mind can be. Our
Hmm.
mind can be self deceived, but I do not see any evidence that the heart is capable of self deception.
Oh,
So
okay.
when we're coaching, we may not call it this, but we're getting people in touch with their inner truth, their heart,
Hmm.
their highest self. To me, it's all the same, helping someone integrate
Hmm.
more fully.
It is using the wisdom that the body has instead
Mhm.
of using all of these external, I guess what we see in coaching is that we're quick to like say that the reason I can't do something is because of somebody else or some other external factor. So not only are we eliminating those external factors, but we're also diving into like different parts of the body, specifically the heart, as a
Mhm.
way to cultivate wisdom as far as like how we should move forward, basically.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and also I think of too just the impact that leaders with a heart of service,
Hmm.
leaders that develop empathy, it is such a superpower. And the statistics on developing EQ in the workplace are just they're so profound.
Hmm.
Just the positive impact that a leader can have just by developing that heart centeredness.
Hmm.
And and I wonder how many people like me, I talked about this before you hopped on, Bryant, but how many people like me in the beginning kind of assumed like, oh, heart centered is wishy washy. Oh, intuition, that's woo woo.
Yeah.
And yet then I would be disintegrating from a whole part of myself versus bringing my full self forward.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Um, I would say that these conversations around intuition, around the heart mind, around the gut, around the mind, these, I think they're just becoming more normalized because as we advance into a more technical world when it comes to just AI or just like just using social media, I think what happens is that we start to lose touch with what is actually going on in reality, but also internally,
Mm.
because we're always looking at a screen or we're always consuming some type of information. So I think with that, intuition isn't woo woo anymore because now it's like, or empathy isn't woo woo anymore because now it's like we have to understand the science behind how people actually connect with each other. It's interesting because like it's I was reading a study the other day on how to combat stress and burnout. And then it talked about just kind of like, what burnout is and just the different factors that are associated with it, which is like cynicism, disengagement, with disengagement. And it sounded a lot like depression. And I was just like, oh, okay, like, but I guess my point in saying that is just like there's whole studies around emotions and just like the things that were talked about as spiritual, and how in the role that they play and how we show up, whether it be at work, whether it be in at work or at home. And I guess that's where coaching is moving towards, because I think that coaching, I guess, gives people the opportunity to just reconnect, because I think that our realities are just so like skewed through everything that we see on social media. It just seems like it's 10 times worse, right? When in reality, like, and I say this, and this might be controversial, it's just like, if whoever gets elected, it's not really like the end of the world keeps going. Like you still have like we are impacted, and we're impacted in different ways, but the world doesn't stop, right? We still grow, we still have to just like still be able to connect with each other. We still have our legacy, we still have things that we would like to carry out. So it's just like, why is the weight of this thing? Why is this thing weighing on you so heavy? Or why is this thing weighing on you so heavy? And it's just a question. It's not to say that it can't weigh on you, but it's just better understanding like, okay, like how is this impacting you internally? Or how can we better reconnect as far as like your relationship to this thing, right? So I think that is where that the woo woo, I like your words, the woo woo. I'm going to keep calling it that. The woo woo has so much science behind it now. And it's just simply like, how do people communicate with each other? How do we communicate with ourselves? How do we better the relationship with ourselves? So I just see it as, somebody just with a PhD has to say something about empathy. And like now everybody believes, oh, empathy is like a real thing. And it's just like, no, it's always been here and it's just a part of who we are. It's just up to us to cultivate it. And that just takes understanding people a lot more in a world in which it's really hard to like separate reality from like just things that are going on in our heads and not within and not using our bodies for what they're there for, which is just to protect us, but also to help us understand ourselves a lot more.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. And the what I find really fascinating is that, just because we choose to learn empathy or become a heart-centered leader doesn't mean we turn into a big marshmallow, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's there was a book once that I came across that don't be nice, be real.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see a world where we're comfortable with discomfort. We're comfortable with moving towards something and not pulling back and judging and running off on social media. I saw the other day just this girl posted a picture and it was in a kayaking group and everyone just ripped her apart. And I was like, wow, they don't know her. I mean, if I was her, I'd have felt terrible. And this is the world we're living in.
Yeah, it's that is a part of like I guess my mission too is just to find wisdom in pain because I think that we just put on a mask or we put up a veil, whatever you want to call it, and make it seem like everything is okay. Like, I think you see it a lot on. I see you see it on social media platforms. You see it through these 59.99 coach training programs. Like, hey, you can do it, and you see it on LinkedIn. Like, here's how my daughter taught me about marketing, and it's just like we put up this veil, like just hey, that's not real though. Like how can we really explore the pain that we feel because in pain, in my opinion, is a chance to really just see who you really are, but also see how you want to be better for yourself, the world around you, and just individuals in your life. And I guess that's where this whole concept comes back in because in order to understand pain, you got to understand your heart, right? You got to understand like the yes, no's, the emotions, like really strengthening what intuition is because intuition isn't always something that isn't always reliable, especially if you don't use it often, right? It is a muscle just like anything else that has to be built over time. And I really think that's where coaching comes in at because the way that that shows up at work is just like helping an individual not as a manager, if you're able to have a conversation with the individual about not only like just their OKRs or their KPIs and just like, but also how does this how does this integrate with your personal life as well, right? Do I need to make sure that you're off the clock by 5 p.m. as a manager? Cool. So you can spend time with your family because that's a goal that you have. That's a part of your performance metrics. Cool. Let's talk about it. And then you see it's just an immediate impact on the direct report, but also just as a manager, you're helping this person like with their legacy work, right? So it goes beyond the workplace, right? You understand the person's heart a little bit more, which increases that trust and it just increases just like overall just like morale at work. And I never understood why people don't understand like it can't just be about work. It has to be about the whole person. It has to be about integration. In order to do that, you got to just really dive into like the heart of an individual, understand them, their wants, their desires, their fears, because it's not therapy. It's just like I'm just connecting with people. I want to be connected with people I want to help people see beyond, what it is that they're doing within their jobs. I want to help them, grow into that manager or that senior IC or whatever it might be, whatever the mission is. I want to help them even transition out the job, right? Because at the end of the day, I know I can't be here forever, but it'll help them grow, which means it's helping me grow. So yeah, that was a long rant, but that's my 2 cents on that. Maybe a little bit more than 2 cents.
Well, I think another reason why being heart-centered might have gotten bad rap is because I've seen so much confusion around the language of the heart being confused with our emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, my love hurts. Well, technically, if you look at it, it's not love that hurts, it's the absence of love that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think that confusion, if we parse it apart and just look at what is the heart trying to tell me,
Mhm,
different from my emotional state.
mhm.
Somewhere along the lines, it got connected where, yes, it can be connected, but sometimes the body has an emotional reaction to a thought.
Yep.
That's not the heart, right? So, really, I think in overall, we have a long way to go with self discovery.
Agreed. Self-discovery, self-compassion,
Mhm.
self-awareness, all the things.
Mhm.
It's funny because I was meditating on this weekend, and something that as I've learned that I had to exercise a lot more self-compassion for myself because I can't be very hard on myself when it comes to work performance. And one of part of the meditation is that I just kind of put my hand over my heart
Mm.
and I just extend self-compassion to this area of my body. And you feel so much better afterwards. And I don't know when the science, maybe I need to do the science on this, but I don't know when the science is going to, I'm sure there's some out there, but just doing simple things like that and just putting your hand over your heart, feeling your heartbeat, that's a way that you can better understand what's going on within your heart and really trusting intuition or just sitting with it, honestly, just being present with your heartbeat. um and yeah, like it's very deep. And I think, like I said, I think it's just like we have a lot of wisdom within our bodies that we refuse to use because we're always reacting or we always have an emotion, and that's just, and then we become our emotions when we just experience emotions.
Yeah.
It's not something that's just because I'm mad for a minute, you won't be mad in 2 minutes. All right. Like it comes and it goes. Right. So yes, that heart, and what you've taught me today, along with the newsletter, is just like I understand that yes, no now is it can be an emotion too. It's just about the way that I interpret it, because I can be hard on myself when it comes to if I say no too much. But in reality, it's like that's just what I'm feeling. That's what's coming up for me. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty neat to see leaders that get coached more into that self-discovery process.
Hmm.
They can, really clearly see the difference between a truth and an illusion within themselves.
Hmm.
I know we've talked about that before, that that's one aspect of integration, is learning what is an illusion, what needs to be shed.
Hmm.
Ironically, right? You think of integration as like everything comes together. Well, it does, but for the human, there's also a shedding process with that. Everything true coming together, everything false being released.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Whew. I could talk for a while about that. Those self sabotaging behaviors.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's like integration, especially for a leader. I think that you just get in the routine of these behaviors or habits that may have been helpful into getting you to where you're at. Whether those habits could be like, you're not as quick to trust people, or those habits could be I'm working until the job gets done. I'm working 10 hours, 12-hour days. It could be, like I have to show up in a meeting in a certain way. Like I have to be aggressive, or I have to,
Mhm.
make sure that I say something, because if I don't, you know, then nobody's going to hear me, or nobody's going to look to me for guidance or advice, or just question my leadership skills. I've been there. But yes, bringing it back to integration, I think what I've seen with leaders that I've worked with, but also within myself, is that you realize, like, while those behaviors may have been helpful for a certain amount of time, and you might have gotten some success from them, some of them are just defense mechanisms at this point.
Mhm.
It's just that and like you said, integration is about like how do I shed those behaviors so I can just show up how I want to show up in these spaces? And I don't know if that's authenticity, but I guess like just as a whole person, like with because I worked hard to get here, right? And if I continue to just do the things that I was doing in the past, I'll just work myself into a hole. Um, so yes, integration is also about, like you said, shedding those behaviors that aren't useful anymore. Because at the end of the day, you're growing, you're changing, and if you continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, what is that? Insanity, right? So, yeah, integration is deep, but I guess that the shedding part is so hard. I'm still going through it. So the shedding part is hard. Um, yeah, I never try to sit here and say that I am a fully integrated individual. No, I still have things that I'm working through.
Yeah, I so appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I also appreciate what you just said about the I should be side
Hmm.
of leadership. We can do that in any area of our lives, but the I
Hmm.
should be, that's something that I've really struggled with because, as you know, everyone on our team knows I'm very introverted.
Hmm.
And as I stepped more and more into leadership, I really saw that the women who were successful in a more male dominated leadership society had to act like more masculine, like really strong masculine and show
Hmm.
up that way. And I reached a point, and especially after coaching, helped me realize, yeah, I'm going to be who I am, successful or not, because of who I am. You know, it is what it is, and let's just see what happens if I show up and I really can own the truth of who I know myself to be, who I've discovered I am. And
Hmm.
I will share, I did have one coach that said, "Oh, that's a label." They were playing more of a mentor at the time, but they said, "Oh no, you need to get rid of that. That's more of a label you're putting on yourself."
Hmm.
And that, I took that introspectively, and I was like, no, no, this is like, I am introverted. That is me at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I'm going to self accept.
Yeah. Yeah. I am too. I just know when to turn it on. That's all. So I get it. But yes, to your point about um the should statements, and I think we talked about it before.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like at some point we all have to reach a point like this is just who I am. And you know, who's ever attracted to that, great. If not, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think there can be a lot of identity crisis
Hmm.
that or crises we go through as leaders, right?
Hmm.
Um, who am I in this role? Now, is that different from how I am at home? And why? And where is that line between authenticity and privacy and transparency and my own, right? Like leaders have a lot to navigate. They have a
Yeah.
lot to navigate. So,
Yeah. Most of the things I share on here, if I haven't talked about it in therapy, it doesn't get shared. That's privacy for me. That is the bar right there.
nice. All right. Anything else before we wrap up? We're almost at time.
Uh I just want to say, yeah, thank you again for the clarity on understanding how yes and no is not just a response or a reaction. It is an emotion, or it can be considered an emotion, and it is held within the heart if you actually listen to it. So thank you for that.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. All right. So before we hop off, I am just curious if you are a leader in HR, L&D, or management who feels stuck in the day-to-day grind of your company, or if you're feeling unsure if it's possible to balance your career and cultivate personal happiness. That's something that a lot of leaders struggle with. And perhaps you've tried leadership training that it provides some temporary relief, but you also sometimes just feel left exhausted and really struggling to keep up.
Hmm.
We understand those challenges and we're here to offer some pretty transformative solutions. So I invite you to really look at and imagine what could it be like if you were to adopt a new approach that empowers you to coach your teams to be more self-sufficient, enabling you to focus on what truly matters. And we really want to help those leaders that are feeling stuck in those ways to rediscover the big picture vision that initially inspired them to lead. We want to help guide you through that process to lead a more effective and fulfilling leadership journey and help turn your aspirations into a reality. So if you would like to become a more coach-like, heart-centered leader, we would love to be of service to you. And as I mentioned, we have the Pay It Forward campaign coming up. Bryant, I'll let you
Yes.
talk a bit about that.
Yes. So the Pay It Forward campaign. So this is an opportunity for anybody who is interested in coaching, wants to become a coach-like leader, as Laurel just said. This is an opportunity for you to go through our first module of the coach training, Coaching Fundamentals, in August. So if you want to learn more about that, reach out to me. Now, here's the thing. There is scholarship available. So we have a few spots available. All right. So the quicker you reach out, the quicker you reserve your spot. This is a full scholarship. Okay. So you'll be able to actually participate in that first module for free, but you have to do it as soon as possible to hold down your spot. Okay. And we just want to offer this first module mainly because what's going to happen is that you're going to be able to learn the nuances as far as like what coaching is, what it isn't. You'll be able to have a few tools that you can actually go implement with your teams as soon as possible. And of course, if you want to continue on in the coach training program, you have that option too. Okay. So this is just a great opportunity for you to just get more knowledge on what coaching is or the fundamentals of coaching, coaching fundamentals. And again, this is a campaign just to, spread the word about coaching, give people an opportunity to be exposed to coaching. So if you are interested and open to participate in this opportunity, remember we have scholarship available. All right. So please reach out as soon as possible. August is coming soon. Okay. So we want to make sure that we get everybody signed up that's interested. But this is a great opportunity, whether you want to become a full-time coach, a part-time coach, a more coach-like leader, there is something here in this session for you. 6-hour day. Okay. So clear your calendar, clear your day. And Laurel will be doing the thing. So please reach out to me or Laurel, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you. You can reach out to me here on LinkedIn. But you can also reach me at admissions at integrativintelligence.global, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Cool. And we also love it when you send your teams through the program because you get to learn together and take this work into what you're doing. Super powerful. Bring your team. We would love to be of service to you. All right. So that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much for being with us. And I hope that you got a gem for whatever your heart was needing today. And we hope to see you next Tuesday. Bye for now.
See y'all.